Hello, everybody. We're glad to be back with you again. Here we are talking about the message this weekend. We had a good time this weekend talking about angels. Matt said the title of this podcast should be Something About Angels. So there you go. Something about angels. Anyway, had a good time this weekend. Great crew at church. Man, we had a crowd there. All the services looked really full and good enthusiasm. Psalm 91. 2 weeks left, but this week we stopped and talked a little bit about angels. I thought it was fun. Lots of stories. Tons of people coming up to me with stories of encounters with folks who helped them and directed them, and I had tons of that. I probably had, after every service, somebody was telling me a story. It's really cool.
That's cool. I think it was something that people could connect with. If people, when we look back over different instances, circumstances that happen in our lives, I think we can oftentimes see that there was something there that maybe can't really be explained in a natural sense, or being able to kind of work it out in our own mind. And I think it's a comforting thought as well to think, hey, God's got some guardian angels that step in and help me in my situations as well.
He really does. I think the thing from yesterday that stood out to me the most was, or I saw the most looks on people's faces, is saying that it's very likely you've seen an angel. Mm-hmm. Very likely, because the Bible says many have entertained angels unawares. So very likely we've all encountered an angel at some point in our lives. Interesting to think about. I think some people just think it's very rare.
Sure, yeah.
But I don't think it is.
Well, I mean, I guess if you go back through Scripture, you even mentioned that there were three that were named throughout the Bible, and so when we think about the entirety of the Scriptures, and you think about 66 books that make up the Bible, and there's only three that were named, I think we kind of view that as rare. But then the idea of that, chances are that we've all encountered them in some way, shape, or form. Maybe it's not so rare kind of deal. That's a little bit of a catch-22, a little bit of a kind of a different thought process there.
They're all across the Bible, though.
Yeah, they are, yes.
273 times they're mentioned, and it's just incredible the number of times they show up. You got them in Genesis, you've got them showing up to Gideon, you've got them showing up to Samson's parents, you've got Abraham encountered angels, of course, Moses, just go on and on. They're all through it. And the New Testament,
Right.
Peter in the New Testament, he's thrown into prison, and an angel shows up and breaks him out of jail.
Yep.
It's pretty incredible. Seems like in that instance, Peter knew it was an angel. I guess we should expect that. Maybe that's one thing we should expect in New Testament times that we don't. Maybe.
Yeah, I think I thought about that a lot over the weekend. We tend to think of that as a Bible story that we heard instead of, oh, that's a reality for what we can walk in today. So I guess that's something I've just been kind of like, oh yeah. I think we kind of tend to, you made the sound effect yesterday, woo,
which may have been my favorite part of the day.
But when we think about angels or we think about spirits and demons, we think about all that stuff and we kind of back off a little bit like, I don't know about all that. But it's kind of also reassuring to go, oh, wait a minute. No, that's true for me. Like, I've got angels on my side too. It's not just a Bible story I heard growing up. It's reality for today.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm trying to think of other angelic encounters in the New Testament. I guess you would have John in the book of Revelations experience some of that. Peter. Oh, there's others I know that.
Yeah.
It's Monday morning.
Actually, you're watching this on Wednesday night, but we recorded on Monday. So, in the closing story that you shared, you kind of talked about angels directing our steps, kind of helping to orchestrate things out, and then there were then there are other times that we talk about where angels show up as maybe as a protection kind of deal. What are some other ways that maybe we should anticipate angels showing up in our lives?
They're just unseen a lot of times. That's one of the things. They work in a way that's not even palpable to us. We don't even. I guess the effects are, but for instance, Daniel, as he prayed, we talked about it. The Archangel Michael was contending in the heavenlies with spiritual forces. There was a spiritual battle raging in the heavenlies as Daniel prayed. It's so easy to overlook that.
Yeah, that's one you don't even recognize as happening.
No, you don't often. I mean, you're in a battle, but
Yeah.
you don't think about the fact that angels are fighting on your behalf.
That's good.
That's there. I just think there's so many things that I guess we live beneath our privileges, and we just need to claim those things. My daughter was traveling yesterday in the car, and I just spoke that Psalm 91 over her as she traveled,
Yeah.
And I do believe God dispatches angels to go with us and our loved ones to care for them and watch over them.
Yeah.
The other thing that's important to understand is that does not mean that bad things will never happen.
Right.
Somehow in God's plan, things happen that are not what we want to happen.
Right.
James, the leader of the early church in the New Testament, right there in the book of Acts, he was killed.
Mm-hmm.
Some of our listeners may be asking, well, what about that? It is not a surefire guarantee that nothing bad's ever going to happen to you. It says no evil shall befall you, meaning evil will not conquer you.
Right.
Evil, hell, the demons, the devil, they will not win. Things in time in this earth can happen that are not pleasant, that are not wonderful, that are terrible, but we triumph over them all through Christ. But many times God does intervene to stop things from happening.
Yeah.
And angelic forces move on our behalf. You could read Psalm 91 and take it at face value and just say, okay, nothing bad's ever going to happen to me. That's simply not the case. As I said yesterday, even later in Psalm 91, God says, I'll be with him in trouble.
Right.
Meaning you will have to walk through some trouble. His promise is to be with you. But I think what the psalm is saying is that as a general rule, as you abide in the Lord,
Yeah.
evil's turned away, sickness and disease is turned away, and we should claim that.
I think Jesus kind of echoed that in the Gospels as well. And he told the disciples, he tells us, hey, in this world you're gonna have trouble.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming. Yeah, there will be trouble to be had, but the flip side of that is that hey, in this world you're gonna have trouble, but take heart, I've overcome the world.
Mm-hmm.
And it is that thing of, I think it's still that same message there that you're going to encounter problems. It doesn't mean that everything's going to be easy peasy, no big deal. But that he has overcome that. Evil will not prevail against you. I think it's that same message there that Jesus just echoes in the New Testament.
People could argue, and I know I'm playing both sides of this today, but there's a reality. Peter was delivered at one point from prison by an angel.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of his life, Peter was crucified.
Mm-hmm.
He died for his faith. And Jesus even told him it was going to happen.
Yep.
Got that whole scene on the beach in John 21 where Jesus said one day they'll carry you where you don't want to go. In other words, Peter, there's some difficulties ahead for you, and there's some hardship you're going to walk through. I do believe a man's immortal till his work is done, until his time is done to go to heaven. I do believe that. I do believe there's a time that we go to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And there have been many martyrs for the faith, So I want to stand tall for the miraculous and for angelic protection and blessing and all kind of things. But I want people to understand this is not a 100% guarantee your life's going to be easy. There's a temptation in the whole Christian world now just to make serving Jesus about having a better life and a comfortable life and money and stuff and all that stuff. The kingdom of God is not about money, stuff, and comfort. It's about achieving Christ's mission, and living for him, experiencing him, having life in him, and sharing that.
Yeah.
So there are going to be some discomforting things into our lives, especially when we follow Christ.
Yeah. I think maybe my favorite part of your message over the weekend was, and I'll say it wrong, but basically you said you're better off in the will of God, whether that's on the mission field in the most dangerous part of the world. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're better off in that place in the will of God than outside of the will of God. I think you said surrounded by armed guards in your bed.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times we substitute, we chase after security and comfort and safety, all those things, when in reality the security of what we have in him, I don't know that I'm putting it the right way, but when we're in that will, I go back to the verse, lest you dash your foot against a stone, I'm saying it wrong again, but like
That was exactly right.
and maybe I'm going a little too deep for Monday morning, but like I don't know. I almost go, are there angels that are keeping me from, stubbing my toe, so to speak, when I'm walking in His will? Those dumb little, I stub my toe on that thing. And then when I'm outside of it, am I stubbing my toe just so God can get my attention? Does that make sense? I don't know.
I joked about it yesterday. Did I step out of the will of God when I got up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night?
Just
and
hold
hit
it.
the nightstand?
Just hold it.
Get back in the bed.
I don't know. No, I didn't step out of the will of God. I think it's so powerful to think about that, and it's so good what you're saying. When we send folks out on a mission trip, sometimes kids, we're always praying safety, safety, safety. God keep them safe, and that's a good thing to pray, and you can believe for that. Safety is not the ultimate goal, though.
Right.
The ultimate goal is to do God's will and to touch a country and to touch a nation, and communities around the world. When our kids go, we certainly pray for safety when everybody goes.
Yeah.
God keep them safe. But God, make their journey prosperous for the kingdom. May somebody come to know you. May they grow. May kingdom impact be had wherever they are.
That's good.
Yeah. Guy said one time, I heard this old story about the Coast Guard, and I've told it many times, but there was a raging storm, the Coast Guard was going out to try to save somebody, and one of the younger members on the team said to someone in charge, he said, we can't go out there, it's so bad, we may not make it back. And the leader said, we don't have to come back, but we've got to go out. So that's our mission. Jesus said, go.
Wow.
We got to go.
Got to go.
Got to go. The good news is angels do go with us.
Right.
We're not alone in it.
No, we never are alone. Never. The other thing that's maybe not as joyful thing to think about, but I do believe there's truth in when you veer out of God's will, you are literally taking your life into your own hands. And you're walking out from under the covering of protection. I said this in one of the services yesterday. I don't think it means that God just says, okay, I'm taking the angels away. You slipped up. I don't want to portray God as that kind of vindictive, legalistic thing. But again, as a general rule, as we walk outside the will of God, we expose ourselves to danger.
Sure.
When it's the pride thing you're talking about, it's me saying, I've got this.
Right.
Yeah.
Instead of you got this.
Yeah. Right.
Well, it also kind of harkens back to what you were saying as well, is that, the reality of that there are angels there doesn't mean that we just go out and be stupid. Said, if you do stupid things, you're going to get stupid results. So, there is this idea that as you step outside of God's will, you're opening yourself up to danger. I think there's certainly been points in my life that I can look back on where I stepped outside of God's will and God let me suffer the consequences of it. Now he didn't walk away from me or anything like me. I was doing my own thing, but it's not like he just took his hand off of me or anything like that. But he let me feel the weight of those decisions, of those consequences, and I stubbed my toe more than once. That bed rail did not feel good.
How many times do you hear of a tragedy taking place, and a lot of it was because that person never should have been in that situation they were in. This is not to, I mean, people have lost family members in ways like this, and that's horrible. It's tragic. But how many times do you hear of someone dying because they were drunk out of their mind or high on something and just went nuts, where the will of God would have pulled them out of that addiction or out of that party or out of that situation they never should have been in.
Right.
It's like God puts up these rails and says, hey, walk in this way. And if you walk in it, there's a good deal of safety. You're not going to get in it.
Yeah.
I don't want to die because I did something stupid and just wreck my life. If I were to pass away sharing the gospel, man, I think back to those missionaries, Jim Elliot, Nate Saint, those guys who were in Ecuador back in the 50s who, they were out on a beach, remote jungle, I think it was January 56, I think it was. There's a great movie called Into the Spear and a book, that kind of tells their story. But I think of them, they died young, and everybody saw it as a tragedy, but they died doing what they were called to do,
Yeah.
And you look back at a life like that with great honor.
Sure.
I remember hearing this, that when they died, that the extraordinary part of this story, even beyond their sacrifice, was that Jim Elliot's wife and Nate Saint's son and others went back to this very tribe and won them to Jesus.
Right.
So they knew the people literally that killed their husbands and fathers. They knew them, right? Amazing story. He, I think it was Steve Saint was talking to, this is Nate Saint, the pilot's son, was talking to the guy that killed his dad. I mean, the guy told him,
Right.
I killed your dad. I mean, that's just, that alone is anything. But he told them that as they died, they heard this music. And he said he was with him somewhere. He brought him over to the States. They became like family. He was with him somewhere. And he heard this area in a kind of a part of an opera music of this area being played. And he told them, he said, that's what we heard. And there's this beautiful piece of music. And then they said something to the effect of there were people up in the trees. They could see people up in the trees when these guys died. And I thought to myself, wow, the presence of God and the angels of God were there to take them home, Now, I would have liked to have seen the angels. There's all kinds of stories of the angels showing up and they run off.
Right.
That's not what happened here.
Yeah.
But God was still with them. And could you say of Jim Elliot and those missionaries, could you say that Psalm 91 held true for them? That's a question to ponder. Did evil befall them? Certainly men of evil intent killed them, yes. But did evil actually get to them? I would argue no. Because they were in the very presence of Jesus. Obviously tragic, painful for their families, not pleasant for them in the moment.
Right.
But they were ushered into the presence of Jesus and now hold great honor in the Christian world and in heaven today.
Yep.
So, there you go.
It's powerful.
We tried to talk a lot about angels today, but we wound up getting into this philosophical discussion of evil more than that. But it's important to think about that, I think, when we get into this subject. We didn't have a lot of time yesterday or over the weekend to do it.
Yeah.
We have obviously 4 services, and I have about 30 to 32 minutes to.
Depending. Depending.
I think it's about 32 yesterday. So anyway, we don't have time to get into all that. That's one of the reasons we do this.
That's right.
So.
Well, that was good.
Yeah.
I don't know how we go anywhere else other with that story.
Nope,
So
that's
that feels like the landing spot there for this
Love
week's
it.
conversation.
Thank y'all so much for being a part of it. Thanks for listening. We enjoy this time, and thank you all for being a part of this. If you're not here, we're just talking to ourselves. So
That's right.
So thank you.
Hey, don't forget to submit your questions for us each week after the message. You can send them to us, DM us on social media. Get those questions in about the message, and then we will grab those and we'll try to answer those as we get them.
Yep. Verse 13 this week.
Coming up.
Awesome.
Just one verse.
Oh.
You shall tread upon the lion and the cobra, the young lion and the serpent. You shall trample underfoot. That's this week. One verse.
That's going to be a good one.
Yep, it will.
All right.
Awesome.
See y'all.
Bye, guys.
See ya.